I think we have a quorum. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, April the 4th, 2022. And I don't know if y'all were aware, but Miss Sylvia resigned.
No.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking for a new secretary. If anybody want to, take on that role, it would be greatly appreciated. So
Did
I'm
uh
going
did Sylvia give a reason why she resigned?
to, no, I don't think so. But if I'm not mistaken, her term was about to end
Her
anyway.
term was about to end. Okay.
So, so I'm going to do a quick roll call. Raymond Davis,
Here.
Brandon Hickman, Atiba Johnson,
I'm here.
Miss Shakima,
Present.
Miss Kamika,
I'm here.
Miss Tasha, all right. So,
Did you call my name?
oh,
Did you
I'm
call me?
sorry, Mr. Black. And I was talking to you earlier, ain't it
I thought
so?
maybe I missed you. I thought maybe
No,
I didn't hear you.
that's me, because I was like, okay, so am I supposed to call my name? I'm here.
President.
I got you, Mr. Black.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, and so I wanted to, did everybody get an opportunity to read over the last month's meeting minutes? And if so, are there any changes or anything that anybody'd like to comment on? If none, can I get a motion to approve the meetings from
Motion
last?
to approve.
Who's that?
I'll second that.
Shakima.
Ms. Shakima made a motion to approve, and Mr. Black second.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? If none, minutes are approved. Old business, updates on projects. Mr. Black, you have any information for us on the 1406 Orange Street?
The only information that I have that I can add is that I did receive that letter of support from the Historic Wilmington Foundation, and I did forward that on to Penny to include in the packet.
Okay, wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
everything on that end is complete.
Okay.
Mr. Black, did they anybody give you a timeline on when you think they would turn that in, or when will it be completed?
I have not received a timeline as of yet, but um, I know that Penny has submitted everything now, so we should hear something. I'd say at least within this month. If everything is acceptable or if anything needs to be added. Hopefully, it's good to go as it is.
Okay.
So as soon as I hear something, I will let everyone know.
All right.
Any more questions or comments for Mr. Black? If none, I'll move right along. Partnership with the NC African American Heritage Commission. I'm going to have to circle back around and follow up with them. Um, the last time I spoke to someone, they were going to give me a date that they would be able to come and speak with our committee about partnership with them, what that looks like and what they do. And so I'll have to circle back around and find out what's going on with them. Any questions, comments in reference to that? No? Okay. Is Miss Penny on?
No.
Okay. So we'll table the next part. And Mr. Conway he was coming from another meeting, coming into our meeting, said he wouldn't get here
He's
until
here.
He's here.
Joe, you're here? Hey, Joe.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am. Yeah, I'm here.
wonderful. Wonderful. So you're up next.
And I'm assuming I'm just giving an overview of where we are, what we're doing. Is that what you anticipate or expect?
Right. Kind of tell us what about the Rise Together initiative and what it looks like and where we at with it.
Okay. How long
And
do
I guess how our committee can, help that further along.
Okay.
Or can we?
Well, and there's more to come. How long do you want me to take, Miss Evelyn?
How long you got, Joe?
Oh Lord. Okay, I'll just go ahead and start. Is it okay to share screens? I'm going to take you through a presentation. Host is disabled participant screen sharing. Oh man. Well, I guess.
Let's see. Who is? Let me see.
Miss Penny, the host.
No, it's the communications person.
It's the city's meeting they're on right now.
He's here.
Oh yeah, she's the host. Can
Good
you
evening,
give
everybody.
good evening? Can
Hey.
you give Mr. Conway access
To
to
share screen.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that right now. I have to get my GTV people to do that. What's the problem? What is it that Mr. Conway, what is it that you need, sir?
It was just going to be the same presentation I showed back in February.
And so in order to do that, you need what? You need shed screen of some sort?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in the meantime, I will see if I can get Dylan on point because
Okay.
I would have had to know that in advance to get it set up, but I'll work on it. So you guys,
That's fine.
Okay. So while y'all doing that, can we move down to the new business? Will that be okay?
however you want to do it, Madam Chairman.
Okay. So, Mr. Atiba,
Sorry.
ma'am.
Before you move on to Atiba, is someone taking minutes?
I am.
Okay, you're presiding and taking minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I can pass that roll over to you now, if you like.
I was gonna say, because I'm gonna work on trying to get Joe what he needs, so I won't be attentive as I should. And as a note, Miss Sylvia decided that since we have such awesome two great new people that has joined us on this board, that her services were no longer needed. So her term was up, as you all know. So we now have a vacancy that we're recruiting for, but she felt like when the two newest members came on that you guys had more than enough, and she felt comfortable as to saying thank you for allowing me the opportunity. So I want to make sure that that was clear, that you'll need to elect a new secretary. And I apologize for being late. We have a situation here at City Hall. So I'm multitasking, but Joe, if you bear with me, I'll get you taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and take minutes.
Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll forward you what I've got and move on. Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
can you go ahead and give your presentation while Mr. Conway is setting up, please?
Sure, I'll give my update on Living Legends.
Thank you.
So my recommendation as we're moving forward with Living Legends is we selected some individuals about 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember having a spirited, heated discussion about the individuals we selected, and the committee was kind of torn. So what I'm going to do is, if I may, repoll the same individuals and give the committee to our next meeting to decide on who we would like to select for this Living Legends Award. It's not going to be rocket science. It's going to be, we're just going to select five from the group that we previously selected, but then any other new ones that come about, and then we just make a decision that next meeting.
As an added note, Mr. Johnson, while it was 2 or 3 years ago that we did the Living Legends, it was just last year that we did the Emancipation Proclamation that was over a 3 or 4 month period. There were some folks in that nomination that got selected, and I have those names, and Evelyn and Miss Sidbury should remember that those folks you all had selected to get awards during the emancipation process that did not come to fruition. So before you go back 2 or 3 years, I would only suggest that you guys deal with those folks first, because I think it was either 5 or 6 people that you were supposed to recognize. And
It was 4.
It was 4.
And then 2 of them, so 2 out of the 4 are no longer living. So does that make a difference?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a difference, but I think it's important because we went through the motion of getting the information, got their bios, made them aware that this is what we were doing. All we needed was just to put the program together, and you all decided to put a halt. So I think we need to kind of live up to that expectation and that commitment that we made to those folks in the community. I would think you'd recognize them first before we go back and try to renew and come up with some new people, but that's just my suggestion. So I'll do whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, definitely not opposed to that situation, but the ones that have passed, because it's a Living Legends Award, once I get with the rest of the committee, I think we can put a note or make some kind of remark about COVID happening and us having to postpone or whatever the case may be. I'll definitely let the committee decide on that.
Yeah, and you won't even have to call it Living Legend. There is a name already for that award. So you can do it, collateral, whatever you want to do, but there's already a name for that. Yeah, that you can still do it to not have to stop your process with Living Legend.
Okay, awesome.
So, Mr. Johnson, am I hearing that you're going to forward us the names from the last applicants of the Living Legends, and we're going to incorporate the names that we used for the emancipation along with the Living Legends for this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How soon can you get that to us?
That will be next week, ma'am. This is Azalea Festival week. So it will definitely be Tuesday at the latest, ma'am, before everyone receives their email.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Can we say 2 weeks from today, not next Tuesday, but 2 weeks from today?
Is that council meeting next Tuesday?
Yes, I would ask that you go 2 weeks from today would be better. Because I'm thinking you might need a little assistance from the clerk's office.
So that would be on the 18th.
That would be. It don't have to be on the 18th. It can be on the 19th. But I just need to get it at least 2 weeks out.
Okay.
So are we just compiling a list, or are we compiling? What are we doing with this process? So that's what I'm trying to understand.
So there were names that were given the last time we were going to do the Living Legends. There were already applicants out there. So we're going to use those applicants plus the ones that we had from the emancipation and go back through those names again. Correct, Mr. Johnson?
You are correct, Madam President.
And by the next meeting, which would be May the 2nd, we're going to have, by the end of our meeting, we will have the names that will be used for our program.
Thanks.
Is that okay, Ms. Kamika?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Question, are we going to try and do that this year or what? Is this going to be put on the agenda for 2022?
No, sir, that will be done this year.
This
The
year?
date- yes,
what
sir.
month?
The date will come to you once the committee meets. We'll inform you of the date.
All right, any other questions or comments from Mr. Johnson?
No, ma'am, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Conway, are you about ready?
Yeah, I can.
No, just 1 second, just 1 second. Dylan's
Okay.
working on it, just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So, are there any announcements that we may need to know? Being that we are the Commission on African American History?
Well, I have one, not an, I guess announcement, but just an upcoming, I don't want to say project, but this year GTV displayed all of the information from the Emancipation Proclamation series that we did last year, 2021. And so we may need to meet. I know Ms. Sylvia was on that subcommittee, but if we can devise a plan or just look forward, I know some of the things we're working on is the Living Legends and various things, but just some things for us to work on for the 2023 Emancipation Proclamation series, and maybe starting in January and just maybe having that same format or doing something different, but looking forward to what we would like to do, either kind of starting before 2023 or starting after, like in January, and going forward through a 6-month series again. Um, just I don't know, I guess keeping in mind situation.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because when we started that, we actually started it, I believe it was the end of that year.
Yeah, we started talking, well, we started planning for it in November and October.
Right. So
Um,
it
But
was
yeah,
probably,
November. And then we had our first event in January. And then from
Mhm.
January, we went to February. And so that's why I'm looking forward to the Rise Together information so that we can kind of maybe connect some of that to that. But we can just wait for the presentation.
Right.
I'm sorry, Joe, can you see the button? Dylan says that you should be able to see a button to share the screen. Okay, I apologize for the
It's working.
inconvenience. It's working, darling. Thank you, Dylan. Evan, I apologize, but we're good to go whenever you guys are ready. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, and I would agree, Ms. Kamika, and then I wanted to also apologize for the committee. I wasn't here last month, but one of the things that I really wanted to kind of hone in on is to have, go ahead and set a calendar, because I know I brought it up last year, how we could start a calendar where we would be on target for the things that we were doing for this year. And so my job has changed. And so it did, at that point, it did not give me the flexibility to do what I needed to do, but I'm back here now. So thanks for bearing with me, but I'm hoping that, let me see, this is April, that we can come up with, including what Ms. Kamika Sidbury reflected on, have some type of idea of what we're going to do the rest of this year and come up with something that we're going to strategically put forth and do for 2023. So I'm gonna just leave that thought on the table, and if there's nothing else, I'm gonna turn it back over to Mr. Conway.
Well, thank you all, and I apologize too. I should have given Ms. Penny and Dylan a heads up, but this was always my intent to bring you the same report that I brought to our council agenda, and it was February 13th. My memory serves me, that this report was given. And then I'll also update you in reference to other RTI aspects, including my role, my position, and where we currently are, and where some opportunities for a commission like this might actually exist. But I at least want you to have the information. So before I throw up on the screen that report, I want you to understand that as a result of the Rise Together initiative, the city did contract with an outside diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. Their name is Intellect. You're going to see their name in the presentation. And we are now at the point, just giving you an update, where council is aware, EMT, or our executive management team here at the city, is aware, and we're about to take a deeper dive into that report for them. Now, they all have a copy of it. All of the executives here at the city have a copy of it. They've read through it. They're preparing for Intellect to actually take them through a step-by-step process, giving them the ability to ask questions as well. On the backside of that meeting, probably within about a 10 to 14 day period, we are actually assembling a group of employees. So this is going to be middle management to front line. We wanted to make sure that we had equal representation across the organization. Tony Cottle, our city manager, was very explicit in his request to make sure we had frontline staff members, and not just management supervisors in there. We have met that, and demographically, we've also met those aspects as well, trying to be very intentional about who is actually going to be involved in putting together that 5-year strategic plan. Now, once that strategic plan has been completed, obviously it'll come back to the executive management team to review it, make any additions or clarifications that may need to be had, and then we will prepare ourselves to bring that before council for them to actually approve it, so we can go ahead and get it implemented. We do expect for that to take place over the next 30 to 45 days, definitely before fiscal year actually begins, which will be July 1. There were some concerns, just to kind of put that out there, that have been a part of the process of making sure we dot every I and cross every T as we roll this out, because we really are looking at this being a living, breathing plan that will need to be updated, modified, and adapt to our culture that we're in, and the culture that we're creating here at the city as well. So I'm going to show you this report. These are the employees that how they rated the city, and so as I go through it, if you have questions, please do not hesitate for a moment to just have me pause or say, well, wait a minute, I want some clarification around that. Let me just get my screens set up over here and put the right one up. Can everyone see that? It should say DEI survey. Thumbs up. Okay, good. So this is the actual survey with Intellect, the outside consultant that we hired. And just the other thing is to understand that every company does this. This is not unique to the city. When I was with the hospital, we too hired an outside company as well to help go over and interview executives, frontline staff, the whole kit and caboodle. It's a better way of approaching things. So just wanted to give you that information, because you really do have a neutral party that's coming in to give you an assessment. So this is kind of just by way of what we're going to go through. Don't really want to spend too much time on this slide, just to value our time together, but we'll take you through each one of these aspects. So here you'll see that we surveyed over 452 of just shy of about 1,100 employees. That's not bad numbers for the first year. We did 37 quantitative questions, 4 qualitative open-ended questions. What you need to understand is that, so we also met with people in focus groups. I believe there was over 11 different focus groups that were done. One in particular focus group where we got plenty of great feedback was we did a focus group with just women as well, to make sure that we were hearing and giving a safe space for everyone to voice their concerns, and also to bring forth good things that the city is actually doing right, the leadership is doing right. So we wanted to hear, for all intents and purposes, the good, the bad, and the, I call it indifferent rather than calling it ugly. But plenty of information here to build a strong 5-year strategic plan. This is just an example. We went ahead and categorized it into themes. And what I want you to be able to pay attention to as we go through this is a simple fact of one of the things that's always really good to take a look at is I just highlighted the agree or strongly agree. Those are good things. So anything above that 50% mark, would you like for it to be higher? Absolutely. You like for it to be around 85%, but this is the first pass of this kind, specifically looking at DEI initiatives. So this is not a bad response, but where you want to obviously pay attention to is when you've got that strongly disagree or disagree category. Those are your folks who really are probably going to be the voices in the room, or if you develop safe spaces in a survey, they may actually be the ones that are clicking those buttons within this particular survey. But I'll be honest with you, I've been at this a long time. The folks that concern me the most, the yellow group right here. These are the folks that are on the fence. They didn't fall on the right side of the fence, they didn't fall on the left side of the fence, or they're undecided. Politically speaking, these are undecided voters. And you can actually influence them one way or another, but they're the group that you really want to go after, because you can see the majority of these questions, just by way of the examples that are there, if the neutral group went over to the agreed or disagreed, you've got a really strong survey where 90 to 95% of the employees are happy, are very satisfied, or strongly agree that we're headed in the right direction. So this undecided group is the party, or at least in my mind's eye, to really go after. You will pick up some of those that strongly disagree or just simply disagree along the way. But the neutral folks, you definitely want to get them off the fence to fall one way or another. So this is just one of those categories: personal experience themes. You can see the two most favorable questions here that were asked. My circle of friends, frequent contacts at work includes diverse people. 81%, that's pretty darn good. You're 4 points from what the industry standard would be, which would be 85%. So you'll notice at the very top, I gave it a green star. So this is headed in the right direction. And as well as my manager, supervisor treats all employees with respect. That's one of our core values here at the city. So to get 75% favorable is a good thing. What you see here, by the way, of the blue circles here, the light blue circles, is, there are some things that just popped out, even with a great information like this, polarities and opinions and feelings about DEI initiatives. And I think this also reflects what's going on in our culture. We have a very polarized nation. We have a very polarized political system. So it's very different than 20 years ago where, now we've got the polls that's happening. Whereas, 20 years ago, there was more of a parabolic shape, people being willing to work with one another and not really going, to the far ends. So really the culture is inside of the workplace as well. And this would be any organization, not just the city. And then of course, just polite and respectful workplace, unexpressed feelings below the surface. So it's the meeting after the meeting that's going on there. Again, I'm not going to take it through all of this, but these are just some of the questions that we did ask: hire, recruiting, career development. But here are the things that stand out. So you see I put up a kind of a red pentagon. These things are unfavorable, right? So, the favorability, I believe city employees have equitable opportunities for advancement, regardless of their sexual orientation. There's some challenges there. So we've got opportunity for improvement. And I believe the city takes active measures to seek diverse candidate pool when hiring. How do I diversify the candidate pool to give, minorities an opportunity to be selected? And I'll tell you the same thing that I iterated back in February. I mean, if we keep fishing in the same ponds, you're going to catch the same kind of fish. I don't know how many of you go fishing, but if you want sheephead, you probably know where to get it. If you want trout, you know where to fish to get it. If you want flounder, it's really obvious where you get that. So if you keep fishing in the same ponds, you can keep catching the same kind of fish. It's the same thing when it comes to building a diverse candidate pool. So we want to get better about that. Confusion about who the best candidate is to be hired or promoted. There are underlying currents there, resistance to recruitment and hiring of diverse candidates. So you'll hear often that folks don't want the affirmative action side of things, and very vocal comments were stated in reference to that, and even the one about favoritism. So we know that these are challenges, and sometimes these are also perceptions. So it may not actually be happening, but if I perceive that you hired a family member, a friend, or someone that you knew from the career past, then it's going to come out in a survey like this. Uh, even if it's just that you just really just got along with this candidate in the interviewing process, you seem like family coming out. So those kinds of things can be perceived inaccurately. But the bottom line is, how do we fix that perception and get better at it? So again, another one is policies and procedures that we looked at. Here are the highlights from that. I am aware of understanding the procedures for reporting incidents of discrimination and/or bias in the workplace. Very good score there. Now, this one got a caution yellow upside down triangle because on one hand, it's very good. I know how to report these things. On the other hand, my department has policies and procedures that encourage respect for diversity, promoting equity and inclusion. Challenge. I'm in the 61 favorable side of it. And then you've got these narratives that pop out. Fear that DEI efforts will equal preferential treatment, specifically to minorities, inconsistent in how policies and practices are applied. This is a challenge for any organization, especially one that is, let me just say, as professionally diverse as ours is. How police and fire may deal with their uniformed officers and the civilians that work in those areas may be very different than how the city manager's office or HR or public services may deal. So how do we build that consistency across the network? That's what that 5-year strategy is being designed to address. How do you bring everybody under the same umbrella, but give them enough latitude to still be their own individual department, because these departments are unique. Number 3 is concerns about compensation and benefits. I don't know how many of you paid attention to one of the more recent agendas, that planning sessions, but that is currently being addressed. So I'm not going to comment much more on that, because that will definitely be coming to council meetings here pretty soon, that the entire public will learn about. And then inadequate transparency and promotion and hiring opportunities. There's bubbling up again about hiring, retention, who gets promoted, so on and so forth. So diversity training. Now, this was an interesting one. And I will say this to you. We have here at the city, and again, I'm not, I hope this isn't been taken the wrong way, but this is any organization. You're always going to have what I call islands of excellence in a sea of mediocrity. You're always going to have leaders that get it and are engaging their folks and are actively diversifying their candidate pool, or asking that from your human resources department, or even finding their own candidates to put in that pool and telling them to apply for jobs. They actively participate in ongoing training. I will say I'm very proud of our police department underneath Chief Williams, and very proud of our fire department underneath Chief Mason. So they have invited outside experts to come in and help them with their DEI initiatives, as well as they have point people within each of those departments that are constantly looking at this particular subject matter. Fair and impartial policing under Donnie Williams, and then of course with the outside contractor that the fire department just recently took their 30 leaders through, of which I was a part of that. So very impressive. But how is it, how are we doing across the entire network? You can see the red, kind of stop sign, Pentagon there. That just tells you that we're just missing the mark a little bit across the entire organization. So you do have those polarities and my perception as an employee, but then you have optimism for potential impact of the inclusion program. So I'm happy, it's here. We did the RTI, we did design this position. Joe's here. Joe's going to be allowed to hire someone that's going to be able to help. So it's all positive in one direction, but there is a challenge on the horizon. And of course, inclusion, very favorable here. Not at the 85%, but we are directionally correct. Racial, religious, ethnic, sexual, gender biased jokes or slurs are not tolerated in our workplace. In fact, are called out. And then 73% favorable of my work team. So how people are getting along with one another and the teams that they are on. Do we have flare-ups? Well, the blue bubbles tell us we do have flare-ups. It's not exactly a perfect world, but inadequate communication, listening across the organization. Do I feel heard? Do I have a voice? Can I use it without certain fears that come along with using that voice in these capacities? Concern that all perspective and groups won't be included and or heard. So there again, that voice, anxiety about changes, that's popping up again. That seems to be a theme across 2 or 3 of these main themes, and then just general lack of awareness. I've already commented on that. So you can already see this same narrative of concern is popping up over and over again, while I may feel comfortable about the team that I'm on. And then leadership, how do we feel about leadership? Very good about leadership. Definitely directionally correct. Supervisors are committed and supports DEI, and then also handles matters in reference to DEI to the satisfaction of the 452 that took the survey. So very good position. Obviously opportunity for some improvement, but that's part of my role, right? Identifying where those opportunities are, because you don't quite want to teach everybody the same thing. You really want to be able to identify where the disparities are and target those things. And the employees have mapped this out quite well for me. Doubts leadership's commitment. So how do I get leadership to reflect that commitment ongoing? Because obviously they're committed. The staff, majority of them feel like they're committed, but how are we missing those gaps where some folks just feel like they're left out? The communication gaps, how is that driven consistently across organization? I would tell you majority of DEI issues all revolve around some form or lack of communication. So if you can get the communication right, how it's done, when it's done, making sure it gets to the people that are on trucks all day, as well as the people that are in offices all day, you're going to take care and squash a lot of things. And then cultural norms that hinder open dialogue. You know, what words can I say at work? What words can I not say at work? Do I feel comfortable bringing those things up? That is a definite theme across, you know, this organization, and it's a challenge point, right? And then limited broad diversity, who is actually in leadership across all levels? Do I see people that look like me across all levels? For the most part, we're getting that right, especially when it comes to the city manager's office. I will have to say that just under my, that was one of my first observations, being the new kid on the block. Very impressed with that. Is it the same way across everywhere else? Not exactly, and we know that, right? And that's why we hired an elect to come in to help us develop that, and then the employee is going to help us come up with our 5-year plan. And then overall, now this is going to be, so you saw a lot of good, you saw some challenge areas, but where does everybody feel at the end of the day? What's the overall score? This one is quite telling, right? So I feel great in a lot of key areas, and there's challenges in others, but overall, we've definitely got some work, okay? There's hope in this DEI program and what it can bring. How do we get consistent definitions and messages to everybody? And then what are the unknowns and challenges that lie ahead? And then how do we communicate those things? Because we got to get everybody on the same page. So that's going to be part of the challenge too. And then what's the resistance, the unspoken words, or people that, you know, assume that, well, I can turn this on when I'm at work and I can turn it off when I get in the car and I pull out of the parking lot. And I would just tell you from my experience, that's very tough to do. At some point, there's going to be a slip up. There's going to be a mess up. So when that happens, how do we make it in such a way where it's a learning opportunity and not so much a penalizing point, unless it needs to be. And HR is not my area, though I'm keenly attached to HR, communication, and anything that deals with the law. So those are my 3 key areas and partners that I work with here at the city. I need them as much as they need me. But when it comes to disciplinary actions, where do we draw the line where, hey, listen, we've given you opportunities, now we're going to have to go a different route. We want to make sure we build the case and give plenty of opportunity for that as well, because this is a learning environment, and that's going to be extremely important. So I'm going to stop there, other than to say, you know, obviously we've got some challenges, but I'll take your questions. And before I do is, one of the areas that I do feel like if you know of you know, people in your family or people in the community that work for the city, what I'd like to do is for them to reach out to me and let me hear from them. I've already been interviewing all of the executive management team. I've now interviewed 4 of the county council members, and now I'm starting to get into the county as well. and I'm very much so attached to a lot of our nonprofits and other organizations. And I'm also talking to businesses in the area. So networking with them, because each one of those businesses has a challenge as well around this DEI aspect. But I'll pause there and ask you if you have any other questions or something I can take care of.
I have a couple of questions. All right. So when we look at the, I guess the DE and I guess department within the city, are we looking at it when we look at it from a diversity lens? Is it being pointed out in the questioning from a racial diversity lens? Because we're using the word diversity broad. And so that's one question. I got a couple of questions.
I will answer that one by saying yes.
Okay.
We do look at race, and you're right, it is broad. We do focus on race, we focus on gender. We are currently looking, just to kind of give you an example, HR and I met with legal to also start collecting information on who's applying for our jobs. So how do we collect that demographic data on the back end? Now, I may not be able to collect it on a particular application, but I can collect it as an after survey of the candidate that applied. We want to know who's applying for jobs. The city attorney has actually asked for that information in reference to some of our open positions around that as well, because we do want to, and here's our approach. I'm just going to be honest with you. He and I agree on that. Just diversify the pool. If we can diversify the pool, that gives Black and brown, women, LGBTQ, it gives everybody an opportunity to be selected. Now, the caution there, like I said, I've been at this a minute. Let's say we diversify the pool and still the majority population, which would be the white population, is still being actively recruited. That speaks to a totally different issue, which may be like an implicit bias or a conscious bias. Something is going on, and that would give me cause as a DEI chief for the city to drill down on why that is actually happening. And it could be a training issue. So yes, but we do focus on race quite a bit. The real question for me is how do we add to that the gender and our LGBTQ population and veterans as well. That was another one that we were wanting to drive.
Okay, and then so my second and last question is, and you distinguished and you got a lot of subgroups within there, but when we look at generational, so we have a whole population of young people entering the workforce, and so was it any divide as far as generational roles? Like, was it where, okay, you have this subgroup, because that's a diversity issue too, because generational, they have a different mindset than those who may be veterans within the city. And even when we look at the Rise Together initiative and how individuals were even discussing the Rise Together initiative during the first session, none of those individuals were under the age of 40. They might not have been under the age of 50. And so we're putting a lot of things into play for a group of individuals, and I don't want to say this in a rude way, that they have already made an impact within the community, but we're not asking questions from individuals who are trying to make an impact in the community. And so that's another way. So yes, we can diversify racially. We can look at LGBTQIA. We can look at veterans. We can look at all these other individuals. But if we're trying to raise and rise together, we're not asking that core group of individuals that are going to lead this community in the future. And so that is another just a note.
No, and point well taken. So I'm going to share my screen again, because while you were talking, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. It just makes it easy for me. So this is the document that Clayton Roberts, who's our Assistant Director of Human Resources, and I came up with several weeks back. That we're working through this with legal to actually add this to our application process. We are also stratifying this data internally for the existing employees. So I do have a report on that. That would take me a little bit longer to find. Still being the new kid on the block, so I've started filing some of this stuff. But you can see here, obviously the gender, obviously the race. And we're letting folks fill out what they want to fill out, because we can't obviously obligate them to it. But if it's an option, folks will usually they'll fill it out. But you see down here, we're also looking at age brackets. So I got, my Zers here. Here's my millennials, letter D. If you're a Xer, there you are. And of course, if you're a boomer on the call, you're 46 to 64. And then we got our silent, or sometimes referred to our traditional generation, because we really do have 5 generations working side by side. The average age of people working in the city, if you take all of our employees, I believe, and don't pin me on this, but is 42. So we do have a lot of young folks working in the city, and where they typically will go are to some of those more frontline positions within the organization. Even our cadets, police officers to be is how I like to refer to them, are younger, and same thing goes for fire. So we are recruiting young folks as well, but we're drilling down on all of that. A lot of this has happened since about late February and March. We're starting to produce these reports, and I'm now reviewing to see where the gaps are that we may need to focus. So excellent question. Excellent question. Tasha, you got your hand up.
Yes, hi, let me lower it down right quick. So a few things I noticed. When it came to attitudes, I guess about the impact diversity inclusion uh, would have on hiring, and I noticed that a lot of folks thought that it might create. I think you mentioned it before about like an affirmative action type of thought process, which and so they thought that might actually tip the balance of, employment and employment opportunities towards certain demographics, which I'm not surprised about given the racial, the demographics of the city. And so to that end, I was wondering what you can tell us about the demographic makeup of your sample.
Oh, wow, that is a great question. So I will answer that transparently, which is when Intellect put together the surveys, folks did not self-identify for that 452, other than by way of gender. When they conducted the focus groups, there was some data that was able to be collected around how people self-identified regarding their gender. They didn't really ask people what their specific race is. And continuing with that transparency, that's one of the reasons I've been working really hard with HR, so that as we move forward, we need to know who's answering what. I don't need to know by way of division or department, or even by profession, but I do need to know, generally speaking, who's taking these surveys, and then be able to quantify that data as to how certain populations responded. We brought up age, we brought up race, gender is another one that we would want to know. How do women feel in this organization? Do they feel like there's upward mobility or opportunity being given? And on I could go. So, you asked a very good question. I'm giving you a very honest answer. That was not done for this particular survey. That was one of the things that I first noticed. And when I asked, there were some concerns around asking that particular question. And I've suggested going forward how you could do that in a way that would not identify individuals that were partaking in the survey. That was one of the concerns. So there are ways to collect that without people identifying who they are.
Okay. I have a couple more. So I noticed when you were mentioning the diversity of the pool of applicants, that you all were trying to make sure the pool of applicants is more diverse, but that also if the pool of the applicants wasn't translating into a diverse workforce, then trying to see where that there's the disconnect. And I wonder if you or whomever, people on your team might consider the impact that nepotism or favoritism might have on that part of the hiring process, especially in a town where it seems, if you're a city employee, more likely that your family and friends will be.
Yeah. So let me make one point of clarification. So I'm just now starting to work with HR on the ability to diversify the candidate pool. Up until this point, I think whoever applies, and that's the way it's being done right now. So that is a new process, and we're literally at the infancy of getting started in how to do that, including holding career fairs at HBCUs or even HHCUs, which is historically Hispanic colleges and universities. So target marketing, in other words. So that's we haven't started that yet. I just want to make that point of clarification. I apologize if it wasn't clear.
Oh, no.
As far as the nepotism, you are not lying there. I used to tell people when I worked at the hospital, and I used to do new employee orientation at the hospital for 2 hours for over 5.5 years. Be careful who you talk about, because you might be talking about somebody's cousin or auntie or fourth cousin twice removed. I mean, you just don't, someone's church, that person goes to that church. And so I used to always caution people in a town like this to be very careful. I myself have had to be very careful since I moved here 15 years ago. So yeah. And then the point that you brought up about nepotism, that actually popped up on the employee survey. You're exactly right on that. That is a concern. That to me is a training issue, and we do have to be cognizant of that. I would tell you our human resources department is very much aware of that. Scott, that I have now met and work with, very much aware, and they are looking for those kinds of outcomes. So I think there's this heightened awareness since the RTI initiative and this hyper focus on making sure where we can get those easy wins, let's go after them and let's go ahead and get them. But then there's the more challenging things, like diversifying the candidate pool. Once we post in NeoGov for people to apply, we can't control who's applying. We don't ask them their racial information. And even if it is, it's optional. So, we're trying to find more creative ways to get at that data and then target market. I'll tell you one thing that we've actually done. In fact, it was written up about 2-3 weeks ago. Our fire department is now going into schools and looking at opportunities to give young people to enter into the fire department. So the age to become a fire person now is age 18. So we'd like to approach, your new Hanover high schools and give opportunity to students, and even get in front of our 7th and 8th graders, like in Williston, which I think was where one of the events was done, to let them know this is a potential career path for you, and it is a very real possibility. When we go into those environments, we also take fire individuals that look like the culture of the school. And so you may remember, like a Mike Lee being pictured, and Nick and Rachel and others who have been going out to these schools, along with Chief Mason, of course, kind of ushering in and giving our kids an opportunity to see what can be. And, there's a famous saying out there of an organization I belong to: if they can see it, they can be it. But if they can't see it, they don't see people that look like them driving the truck, on the back of the truck, in uniform, then it's very difficult to navigate that. And Donnie Williams has done the same thing. Chief Williams has done the same.
Thank you.
So, Joe,
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with our committee, but it came to my mind because as I sat on another committee, it was recommended that employees of the city council people took part of an implicit bias. Do you know if that has happened?
So prior to my arrival, there is an implicit bias course that was actually taught to the about I'm going to say just shy of 100 of some of the city leaders. So this would be management or so supervisor, manager, and above, all the way up to the EMT. And there were also not just live courses, so live courses over virtual, but they also then had follow-up classes that they had to take based on a computer-based learning system. And we are now putting together that report to see where we are as we're coming up on that actual contract being due. Any other type of implicit bias that was done, I just found out today, as a matter of fact, with Linda Thompson, who did it prior to her becoming the chief diversity officer for our county. She also did a lot with the police department and internally as an organization, as well as the executive management team. So there has been that work done. As far as the rest of the city staff, not as much. And that's currently what I'm working on. And I'm starting a pilot group here within the next few weeks to begin to develop an implicit bias training based on the information that I have out of the Intellect report and also my direct observations as I've made my way to different departments around the city.
Right. So thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that is going. I was aware of what Linda did, but when the recommendation was made, it was more so to the core city group and upper level management.
Yes.
So my next question is, I know that your role is a part of the Rise Together initiative. What are some other components of that initiative that our commission would be able to play a role into?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think, in any type of education, really a lot of what you all are doing, I am very curious as this plan comes for opportunities for our city staff to engage with the community around the history here in Wilmington. Specifically the African American history, but really all the history. I know I've talked to Cedric Harris with Wilmington. Was it Wilmington? I wasn't going to get it wrong. Wilmington. Thank you. And I know support the port, and I know his new role as well. But how do we get folks involved actively in understanding the culture that built Wilmington? So is there an opportunity for you all to be a part of say like a new employee orientation or special presentation done specifically by this commission that we set up and invite employees to? You're making a lot of inroads with the opportunities. So how do I begin to bring those opportunities to our communications department? I think there may be a challenge there that, and I just think it's a lack of awareness is really the biggest challenge of making sure that our staff are aware of what commissions like yours are doing and then plugging them in. And then use the reward technique, right? If you attend so many a year, you don't even attend every one, but maybe we can tie that into our evaluation or merit process. Now, that would have to be a part of that strategic plan, but those are the kind of ideas that we want to bring forward to get us from out behind our desks and into the community, actually connecting to the community. So I've gone back and watched a couple of the videos and some of the things that you all have done. I think you're doing a great job. It's just how are we participating and supporting that work? And so we've got to get better about doing that. Does that answer your question? Does that help?
Yeah, and I guess for me, I don't know about others that are here, is for me, it's more understanding what this initiative is and how it's supposed to impact the community. Because I know that I myself have asked several occasions, what does that look like? And how are the roles being played? Because to me, I'm really not still understanding what this Rise Together initiative really means. And so if you brought a subject up to the forefront, there was a proclamation done, how do I go out and explain it to my neighbor that the city is on board with making sure that the community is cohesive?
Yeah, that's so I hesitate to answer it for two reasons. One, I don't have the 5-year plan as identified by the employees with intellect. But I will tell you, you know, Evelyn, what I have put together, something very similar to what I know is the foundation for every DEI program. A is obviously the education of the leadership team, um, and that would include you know what is the potential for council to get involved beyond the Rise Together initiative that is actually in place, because it's everything rises and falls on that leadership and how they provide the opportunities, what the expectation of their direct reports are, and then that feeds into the hiring, retention, opportunities for advancement within the organization for um, you know this historically marginalized group to include women, LGBTQ, Black, Hispanic, and many others, including some of our folks who are have differing abilities, or some people refer to them as disabilities. So that all provides opportunity for the community as well as they engage with our organization. The second thing is we got to measure the data on this. It tells us where to start. That's a gap. How do I know where to start if I don't have anything that's pointing me in a particular direction? Currently, that has been a challenge by way of looking at quote unquote data. This survey would have been one of those opportunities. And now we have to turn internally to HR data that's already there to see what's going on. I will tell you that I've already taken no less than 5 calls in reference to our employees engaging with the public who you have two different demographics engaging with one another. And, you know, there's been a challenge there. And those calls come in. How do we want to address it? And thankfully, in all 5 situations, our employees have had the right response. And but it doesn't mean that I'm not following up with that community member to find out exactly what the challenge is. So it gives me an education opportunity with the community. And I would love to even offer education to the community by way of CREC or another group that I'm involved in to help mend some fences as well. And then, you know, I'll say the final thing um, is really going to be opportunity. So supplier diversity on our city website, we have supplier diversity identifies we want to give 14%, but that's just for construction services, those larger dollar services. And how are we measuring that? So that is another challenge. That's an opportunity for us to better measure that, to report on that, and then to educate folks on if you are a minority or MWBE, how to do business with the city. So Daryl and I have talked about that, and there is a concern there by way of an open position there. We need to get the right person in place who their specific focus is going to be tapping into. You know, Daryl used to do that a long time ago when he used to go out to the community and find those minority contractors and tell them about bid opportunities. And then the other thing too is how do we not just be super focused on the construction side, but what about services? So right now we're going through a process that's going to bring on a major service to our organization, but because it falls under the service bucket, it's not currently being counted under that 14%. If it was allowed to be counted under that 14%, who knows, right? Like right now we could be at 6%, and that might actually tip us over and give us that 14 or even 15%, but those dollars don't count towards that. So we've got to, these are the things that the DEI program can bring forward, and then develop a dashboard so that the community actually knows what is going on. How are we doing with hiring? How are we doing with that 14% for supplier diversity? If you are an MWBE, how do you do business with the city? Who's offering a course or class on that? And that can be a partnership with Daryl and myself. We want to give opportunities so that these are real, tangible things moving forward, so that no one feels like they don't have the opportunity or are being left. So we have to just put real things behind it. And, it's also us holding ourselves accountable. And that's really where accountability starts. It starts here. It doesn't start with the community holding us accountable. It starts with us saying, if we got a goal, how are we holding ourselves accountable? And I would say I've had a lot of conversations around that. And there are some gaps. We know we've got some challenges, but we also know we're doing better than we are portraying. we just don't have the data to back it up, right? Or we can't show it in a way where it says, we really are doing good work. And so that's part of the conversation as well.
So, and I guess I'm gonna let it go after I ask this question. And maybe I shouldn't ask, but I am, because once again, I'm still confused. Um, Meaning there is an initiative that was put out there, and I'm hearing that maybe we don't have the data to do what needs to be done. So maybe the initiative should not have been put out there first,
Well,
and that we should have done um, research around what needed to be done before the initiative was put out there. And I say that in all honesty because I'm still confused. And I'm not trying to be funny,
No.
but once again, if I am talking to my neighbor who doesn't get involved but wants to know what's going on, why isn't this happening? What am I supposed to say? And I'm not looking for a response, but that is how I'm feeling. And that's why, I kind of wanted to get a little bit more insight on where
Yeah.
the initiative is and what is supposed to be happening. And that's just me. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
well, my concern was because I really thought that the Rise Together initiative, and when I went back to read it, chairperson, chairwoman, Bryant, it is an operational agreement. It is not a community agreement. And so that's kind of where my dismay, like, okay, well, the beginning, the whereas, you got a lot of community pieces in the beginning, but then it comes to the bottom and it's looking at from city workers and a standpoint of, okay, well, this is not even a community agreement. And I know it was read and I know we reviewed it. And I guess, through the process of, like planning all of these events that we were planning during that time when the initiative was out there. And it's my fault because I should have read, but when I read it in detail, it's not necessarily a community agreement. It is, okay, how are we going to diversify the city of Wilmington as an organization, but not as a community? And so when you look at it from an organization, okay, that's fine and well, but how is this going to translate to the community? And the only piece that's going to translate, okay, well, we're going to provide more diverse opportunities for people to get jobs, or we're going to provide more diverse opportunities for people to have contracts with the city. But is that going to translate to equity, diversity, and inclusion within the city of Wilmington? That's not necessarily so, but we're going to translate that to the city of Wilmington as an organization. That's where this Rise Together initiative is. So what I was looking for through the initiative, I can't get from the initiative that was put out ever.
So Kamika, Ms. Evelyn, you're both spot on. Now let me just say one particular thing that the Rise Together initiative does have in it, and that is the community side of it. It's more than just providing opportunities to citizens of the community to work here, to rise up through the ranks, those kinds of things. The other arm that I've been tasked with is also connecting to community businesses. So, obviously we've got the Live Oak Banks here, we've got the PPDs, the Cornings, we've got the hospital, and on we could go. One of the things that a lot of the business leaders that I've met with thus far, where their challenges are is, how do we attract diverse talent to this area, but not just attract talent to the area, get them to stay, and then get them plugged in so they can acclimate to the area. That's a challenge for all of our business leaders as well as the city of which these businesses are located in. So one of my tasks also is working with them. Encino is a great example of just connecting over there and asking, Zedric, what are the challenges of folks that are moving this new talent that's moving into our area, and then designing programs or designing ways of getting them plugged in. And I'll tell you, in some of those meetings, the idea of coming up with another green book actually came up so that folks knew where, to shop and knew where to get their hair done or knew where their centers of faith are and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is the same thing. Many folks come here And they love the area and all of that. But then they have a problem connecting with the community that matters most to them. And they just don't know where to go or who to talk to. So that's one aspect that, is pretty big. And, and the only other thing I'll share is just keep in mind, I know you all get this. This is truly a process. We didn't arrive here in a year or two, or since the RTI was put in place on August of 2020. And so it's going to take some time. So some of the key things that have been done is obviously the outside consultant to review and look at the employees, the policies within the organization, my position, the specialist position that I'm now recruiting for. And then we've got to get together this 5-year plan. Once the 5-year plan comes, at that point, now it's about implementation and, what's going to be done year 1, year 2, and so on and so forth. I think that's when you'll see the rubber finally hits the road and you start seeing a lot of different things that you can actually key in on. Right now, some of this is just fringe work or some necessary tilling of the field that needs to be done. And that's a slow process, unfortunately. So I do understand your perspective, but definitely, keep the questions coming, keep the observations coming, as well as the challenges to answer your neighbor, so to speak. But if I had to answer my neighbor, I would just, tell them the RTI, the consultant that was brought in, the survey that was done with the employees that revealed exactly what I just showed you, and then the positions that are currently being recruited, and then the 5-year plan will have to be submitted to go into effect beginning fiscal year 23, which begins July 1 of this year. So those are the moving pieces right now. Everything else, Kamika, you hit the nail right on the head. It's internal. And that's true of any organization. We got to focus on ourselves and get ourselves right before we do a lot of work out there in the community to say what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. But I think the other thing too, prior to my arrival here, the city did some pretty interesting work. I know, Ms. Evelyn, you and I were on one group with ARP money, trying to get that into the hands of nonprofits that don't normally get those funds in order to move the needle specifically within marginalized areas. And we did a great work with that. I think $500,000 on one stint and then $700,000 on another. So 1.2 million total to those nonprofit agencies. That's part of that RTI as well. So there are some good tails to go along with this, but I get that it's slower moving than some of us would like to see.
No, I appreciate. I was just, I guess I was just looking, not necessarily for more, but for more of a community. Well, more of a broader brush and more of a community perspective. And so, and I like, I'm a Wilmingtonian, and regardless of where where I'm located or whatever, I'm a Wilmingtonian. And so, my sons are Wilmingtonians. And so when we look, and we're always looking for talent outside of Wilmington, when we have a talent pool of young people that get lost within the storm or whatever else that can be collected and sucked into a system, that we neglect them, and we're always looking for talent outside. So, like sometimes when people are not from here and we're looking at students that have potential, especially as an educator, I see students that have potential. Sometimes we got to tap into this, not only the talent that's come to try to attract people here, but try to attract people to stay here.
That's right.
Here. And yeah, they can travel and go to different places, but sometimes invest in those who are here to go to Encino or Live Oak Bank, because it's I'm not gonna say it's easy or it's hard or whatever else, but give them the opportunity also.
Absolutely. And so just to tip the cards just a little bit, HR is working on an internship program for exactly the population that you just described, so that we can give them opportunities to be exposed to things here at the city level, and that we're not the only ones. Hospitals doing it, Encino is doing it, the 100 Black Men, which is a nonprofit organization. Everybody's starting to look at how do we recruit this local talent and provide entry-level opportunities. And then like with us in the hospital, Encino and others, then we'll give them money to go get that education. So we're all feverishly looking at this, and what we have found is when you look outside the area, there's a lot more negotiation with that. There's usually other things that have to happen, including, salary and everything else. And then there's even people moving here within New Hanover County and the challenges that that has. So it would be nice if we can just take that young person that's already here and put their feet on a path for success. And you're right, it doesn't make a difference if they stay here or not. If we give them the education and everything to be successful moving forward, they can take that and springboard 2-3 years later into wherever they want to go. The point is that we need to make the investment up front, and we're all looking at that.
Are there any other? Who was that? Any other questions or comments for Mr. Conway?
Man, y'all got my head sweating.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conway, for your presentation. And I'm hoping that you'll, come back and share with us in the future.
Yeah,
About
I hope so too. I'm not quite at 90 days. That'll happen on the 17th of this month. But there's been a lot of good stuff being done prior to my arrival. And, I hope with this 5-year plan, I'm itching to start, but this is a different culture, way different than healthcare. So I do need to take that into account moving forward. But give me a year, and build that dashboard and be transparent with the community on what we're doing. We will get there. I promise you.
Well, that's fine. I just, my whole thing was, or how do we as a commission fit into, and I know that when we did the series.
You're on mute, Miss Evelyn.
For the education community. And it was interesting because one of the panel discussions that we had, the mayor was there, and he ended up being on the panel discussion because his family, from whence his family came. So to me, it's important as we document, share, and continue to educate the community. But as a commission, we still want to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing under the city. And I think that that's important as we move forward to know what every moving part is.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? If none, thank you again. I appreciate that.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to recommend Mr. Willie Black to be the new secretary. I don't know if I could make a motion for that. You know what I mean?
Was that Mr. Black? Because I see his picture, but I didn't see him. Did he say?
I don't know. He didn't say anything, but I recommend, he did an awesome job previously, during the past term. And I think he would be an awesome secretary.
Are there any other nominations for secretary?
Mr. Black is on mute.
Well, if none, I guess the floor is open for that motion. Is there a second?
This is Tasha. I second. Can I second? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
A motion has been properly made and second. All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye. He's still on mute.
Aye.
Well, Mr. Black, congratulations. You're our new secretary.
I lost my screen for a second, and so I know a lot has transpired. I just got back on my screen. I could only hear you, but I couldn't do anything else.
I love y'all. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the cause?
This is a
Nah,
rough
but
crowd.
congratulations, Willie. We appreciate you.
I guess I will start my job beginning next meeting.
Mhm. And Tasha, if you don't mind, I'll follow with you with the beginning of the meeting notes, and I guess you could forward them to Mr. Black so that he can prepare them for next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else, any upcoming events, anything that we should know about in the community? And I say that because there's so much going on. I've known that our name, meaning the Commission on African American History, for the city has been brought up several times, and by the time I hear about it, it may be too late. So I'm just throwing, if y'all know of any events or anything that's going on, please, share.
Do you want us
But
to share through email or share right now, or how do you want to?
either one.
Okay, well, there is an upcoming event. I'm gonna tell you right now. It is called Melanated in Medicine. It's been sponsored through the UNCW MAPS, which is the Pre-Med Association, Minority Association for Pre-Health Students, NAACP, and DC Virgo UNCW. Um, it will be April the 30th, 2022, from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at DC Virgo Preparatory Academy on Nixon Streets. You may register to attend, and I will send that information to the commission.
Wonderful.
Just by the way, I know about a couple of things. So you all should know that the YWCA is actually doing several events this month during Diversity Month. Sorry, y'all may have already gone over that, but there's like four. Oh, sorry. There are like 4 different events. If you just go to their webpage, they're all listed out. You have to register for each one. And there's also UNCW. You have Reverend Naomi Tutu is coming. I'm a part of the panel discussion on that, but so is Zedric, Miss Linda, and then Elizabeth Fort is also on that. So I think that's another one that you actually have to register for. That one's in alive. You got to come to that one. And then there's a potluck for peace that's coming up this month. I believe it's on the 19th. That'll be at, I can't remember what local Methodist church, but that too is on the YWCA's website for this month.
Oh, and one more, though.
Well, thank you, Joe, for sharing my announcement. Sorry. That's okay.
All right, and UNCW, School of Watson, Watson School of Education is sponsoring the Razor Walker Awards on Tuesday, tomorrow. So that event is also happening. To be honored is Joseph McNeil, Dr. William E. Barber, and the What Clinic of Coastal Horizons. There's one, I think I'm missing somebody, but that's off the top of my head.
And I think it would be advantageous if we as a commission can go out and attend some of these events. As Joe has pointed out, I know I'm a member of the Y, and we do stand against racism every year. And this year we will have a potluck for peace coming back in person at Wrightsville Beach United Methodist Church. And that's going to be that Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And so also there's going to be several events. Please go on the website and look at them, sign up for them, because we also do once a month, the first Monday of each month, a racial justice and awareness segment at lunchtime. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out to our committee is because we are the history of Wilmington. And this is a part of the history that we are a living history right now. Some people don't understand it. Some people don't know it, but we are. And I am grateful and appreciative to be a part of that. So if there's nothing else, it is 5:25. All minds are clear. I'll call this meeting adjourned, and until next month, please look out for Atiba's email within the next couple of weeks so that we can move on this Living Legends. All right, y'all have a great evening, have a great week, and I'll see y'all next time. See you in the community.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.